All right, it's 1:02 Eastern. Let's get this show on the road. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's session around delivering results with performance-based technical enablement. My name is Zane Schweer from Skillable. I am your host today, and I want to thank you for attending today's session, giving us an hour of your time, where we're going to be talking about building a better technical enablement program for your partner program, and how you can move from completion-based training to a program that's built on outcomes, and how you can do that using live software environments to validate and accelerate your channel partner job readiness. So our agenda for today is going, is going to be focused around setting the context first, making sure that we're all talking about the same thing and level set for where we're coming from. Then we're going to introduce the Quest team and talk about their fantastic journey from moving from a completion-based program that was more heavily ILT or instructor-led based to becoming more outcome and performance-based. We're going to talk about how they built their business case, what their solution design looked like, the results and business impact, which is just fantastic what they've been able to achieve and what they're continuing to achieve. And then some of their lessons learned. They have 2+ years of lessons learned that they'll be sharing with us in a condensed manner. And then what are some next steps that you can take going off of this meeting? A couple of housekeeping items. One, this session is being recorded, so you'll get the copy of the recording a couple days to a few days after the event. And if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. If we don't answer them today, we will answer them after the fact in the follow-up email. So don't let that stop you from submitting your questions. This is a user attendee-focused session. So, context setting. I'm going to take the next 6 to 7 minutes and get set the context about what we're seeing from challenges for organizations across the industry, from our customers, from our prospects, about what they're seeing when it comes to technical enablement. And first and foremost, it is that overarching question of how can we improve partner outcomes around the selling, implementing, and supporting of our products. Because you can't just have a program that delivers knowledge. That's nice and everything, but at the end of the day, what is it delivering for the bottom line of your organization? We also have organizations that are struggling to keep training content current. Technology is always changing. Software with aggressive release cycles have these content teams on a hamster wheel of trying to keep content current. And stale content has a lot of negative downstream implications that we'll talk about in a little bit. We also have organizations that are moving from knowledge-based to skill-based training. And what I mean by that is proof of knowledge and proof of skill is another way to say that. Proof of knowledge is you've taken the classes, you've taken the courses, and you've heard and developed the theory and the concepts, but are you able to apply it correctly on the job? And that's where that proof of skill, that skill validation comes into play. Another component is providing these safe and easy to manage practice environments versus the generic labs that are associated with content libraries or learning, aka trial and error in production environments. And why these are so important to have these non-production training environments is because, for example, misconfigurations are a top 3 attack vector that IBM found in their security research. And attack vector is a fancy word for all the different ways the bad guys can infiltrate your organization. And then for organizations that have lab programs in place, some of the challenges that they're facing are around how can we automate and scale resource-intensive processes? So a couple examples would be, how can we automate our lab scoring, which today takes hours of our SMEs, or our subject matter experts' time to grade? Or how can we automate the spinning up and tearing down of our environments so we can then offer more environments at a larger scale? And some other challenges around solving the performance challenges that disrupt our learning experiences. So we see this more with some of the homegrown lab environments where learners are spending more time with support or waiting for an environment to load versus or compared to spending time actually practicing applying their skills. And then to kind of tie this all together, a UK-based tech recruitment firm found through their research that only 27% of companies say they're satisfied with their employees' abilities to use their software properly. That's a problem, like we've already talked about with misconfigurations, with people not knowing how the software works. impacts productivity, impacts your effectiveness on the job, and ultimately, it's also impacting the ROI of your technology investments and people being able to accomplish the overarching business goals. So something needs to change. And that's where the traditional training just is mired in some problems. It has high costs and the efficiency just isn't there. So the Chapman Alliance found through their research that the average cost to develop 1 hour of content is $10,000. So whether it's an on-demand course that's a couple to a few hours to those multi-day instructor-led or ILT courses, things get pricey, very expensive. And is the return there? And it's not really right now. And that's because through research, 70% of new knowledge will be forgotten within 24 hours if it's not applied. And that's based off of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve model. And then 55% of learners need additional training to perform better in their role because they're not being able to absorb and apply and embed those skills when they're learning it in those moments. And then the other component of this is that we need to actually listen to the people using the technology. So last winter, Skillable went to IT leaders and IT professionals and asked them to rank from most to least effective ways of building knowledge and skill retention. And the top 3 are all hands-on practice, real-world experience. And the courses and the on-demand videos are in the middle to the bottom tiers. And then as we dug deeper into that data, we learned that 67% of professionals want more opportunities to practice in real-world applications, and 55% of these people want feedback on their skill application and their knowledge. So the translation here is people want to know that when they're learning these concepts and the theoretical components of developing new skills, that they can apply it correctly on the job. Because nobody wakes up saying, I'm going to do a bad job today on purpose. No, they want to do their best work. So there's got to be a better way. And that's hopefully one of the reasons why you're here today. And the awesome news is there is. And that's why I'm so excited to introduce our speakers today from Quest, Luke Buckley and Andrew Lubchansky, as our speakers today about how they have been moving their organization from that more completion-based organization to being more outcome and performance related. And a little bit about who Quest is. They help organizations move, manage, and secure their infrastructure around the world. And in more common terms, they create products that help IT departments do their jobs more easily. And since they serve, in addition to their hundreds of thousands of customers, 97% of the Fortune 500, their partner ecosystem is a critical component to their growth and success. So enough of me leading the show here. I'm going to bring on the guys, introduce themselves, and then we'll start talking about the great work that they're doing. So Luke, Andrew, welcome. Luke, we'll start with you. Just briefly introduce yourself. What's your role at Quest, and then a little bit of your background. And Andrew, we'll do the same thing for you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Luke Buckley. I've been with Quest for about 12 years, and I've been in enablement since early 2016 with them, and I've created all sorts of enablement programs from pre-sales, technical pre-sales to services implementation. And I love creating creative labs and engaging training content.
All right, my name is Andrew Lubchansky. I've also been with Quest for about 12 years now, previously working in IT in the education world. I've always been in a training capacity of some sort, whether that be one-on-one, conference, webinars, online, in person, now working here in the partner enablement group on the Skillable courses.
Awesome. All right, great. Thanks, guys. So let's set the stage for what the Quest team has created. So let's first talk about what their partner program is, which, by the way, is now an award-winning program after they earned earlier this year a Brennan Hall Group Award, which is just fantastic to get that further recognition of the great work that they're doing. So, Luke, we'll start with you. Just talk with us about that high-level overview of your program. What's your department's charter, and what success looks like for your team?
Yeah, the high-level overview is we have a certification system for services required products, is what we call them, and they are very powerful and intricate tools that we have our partners deliver services on our behalf for. And we have a pre-existing partner network of thousands of highly intelligent individuals who deploy these products for our customers and for our clients. And we create a hands-on, preferably certification program for them so that they can get used to these products, get really comfortable with them in multiple use cases, and deliver services for those products in the best way possible.
Thanks, Luke. Andrew, anything you want to add to that before we move on?
That all sounds great. It's perfect.
All right, awesome. Excellent, great. All right, so let's start getting into the thick of things. What was driving the need for change? And for our attendees here, you're going to see some of these slides will have a lot of content on there. It's more for after the fact when you're looking at the slides to get more information, have more context to build off of what Andrew and Luke are talking about. So they had 4 primary things that were driving change within their organization. One of the big ones was a company acquisition. Then they had high cost resources that were just mired in manual processes. They were trying to move to that results-oriented, performance-based enablement program. And then they were also trying to improve the accessibility and scale of their training by moving it from just being more or predominantly instructor-led, ILT, and bringing it more online. So guys, talk just about all the things that were going on and how are you prioritizing and how are you balancing how to tackle all the things that were going on?
Yeah, when in late 2020, when we being Quest acquired Binary Tree, we had kind of a mountainous endeavor in that there was a large network of pre-existing professionals that needed cross-skilling and upskilling kind of as fast as possible, but at their own pace. So it was a paradoxical kind of situation, but at the same time, we were leaning heavily on instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training. And we started to realize that, at the rate at which we were getting people certified, perhaps, there was another way, but we'll get into that later. However, yeah, we kind of had some really intelligent individuals who were teaching and creating these instructor-led classes, oftentimes resulting in multiple of these people using billable, non-billable hours and teaching every class week after week of 20 to 25, 30 individuals, but never really in a consistent format or a consistent state where they could continually teach people week after week after week, getting everybody aligned schedule-wise, lined up in the same classroom. It's kind of an administrative burden. And yeah, I'll let Andrew talk on some other points if he wants to.
Yeah, I came on a little after the acquisition with Binary Tree, but the challenges of trying to get thousands of people up and running with our software was challenging, if not to say the least there. I come from a world where we used to travel around with boxes of laptops, all over the country, and that model is just not possible, especially 2020. We all know what was going on then. It just was not going to happen. And even doing virtual instruction, as Luke said, just trying to schedule all the resources. You can't have our subject matter experts who are supposed to be delivering billable services hours delivering every single week, right? That's taking them away from actually being able to provide extra value, right? So it was a conundrum, right? Is how do we get that knowledge from the SMEs into the hands of the partners without actually having the SMEs be there? So that's where we were at that moment.
Awesome. All right, great guys. And one of the great things, and what's so great about what Quest did, was that they didn't fall into this common trap. And in that whole mindset of why not just do what an everyday software company would do and go virtual and train everyone online. And online is such a generic term, but really what it comes down to, and what we've seen through this story, if you've read the case study already, is that effective partner enablement isn't sitting in online meetings. It isn't hoping people are paying attention and then betting your and their success on those completion metrics, such as time spent learning, knowledge checks, and these multiple choice questions. There's so much at stake, and that's one of the things that it's just so great about what the Quest team realized, was that there was a lot of at stake there, especially with the acquisition component of introducing and bringing on all these new partners, the risk to longer sales cycles, which impacts sales opportunities and revenue, higher operating costs, and then ultimately having these unprepared partners put customer operations and security at risk. So guys, talk to us more about like what was like the mindset and the mood and the focus of you and the others talking about, hey, we've got to figure this out, because if we don't get this right, there's going to be impacts to our business.
Yeah, I think with the type of software that we were training on, being migration software, it was paramount that we had people get hands-on experience with the product. If you don't learn by deploying the product and configuring it in a real environment, it does put customers and operations at risk. The company's reputation is at stake, and you're kind of abandoning your partners in some way with software that is that powerful. If it's misconfigured, things can get really bad really fast. And that's the kind of situation we were dealing with, higher operating costs to deliver the training over, week over week. There's a lot of factors at play, not just the cost of delivering the training, but you also have these folks who are highly intelligent and they're delivering training week after week, the same class over and over and over again. Then, the whole aspect of instructor, interest kind of comes into play. And it's just a never-ending kind of perpetual situation that seemed almost insurmountable at the time.
We also risk, putting our partners in a situation where if they don't know the product and aren't comfortable delivering the product, maybe they don't sell the product, right? They use other software brands, right? We don't want that, right? We want to make sure that they're comfortable with what we have to give them. So it was a very quick runway to get this off the ground.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think also one of the big things that stood out to me when we were originally doing the case study was around that acknowledgement and prioritization, also around just your brand reputation. If a partner messes up, like it's on them, but their end users don't see it that way. They see it as Quest, and that you all prioritize that and took that to heart is a big deal, because sometimes like brand equity, brand reputation kind of gets put aside, and you didn't. So that's just fantastic. And I mean, that whole thing of these 6, 7, 8-figure deals and these implementations don't do well with hope. Like, you've got to make sure that your people know what they're doing. So that's just, again, like this whole movement to being more hands-on and having that skill validation component is really important. So let's talk about the business case, because yes, while these were a lot of things at stake, you still have to prove to yourselves, to your stakeholders, that this is something that we need to change and we need to make some investments on. So from the the goals and stakeholders and success components of it, just walk us through how you identified what your goals were, who were your stakeholders, and then how did you identify at least those initial success metrics and determinations of what success looked like?
Sure. Yeah, we needed to, as we mentioned, certify and enable thousands of people really fast, but also at their own pace. But we needed them to have accessible training that they can just access with a couple hours here and there and go back to the next day or two and chip away at it as they go, because a lot of people don't have time to allot 8 hours of their day, 5 days in a row for a whole week, and sacrifice that time to even attend the training, let alone for us to utilize our best and brightest to teach those classes and configure them, right? So that was one of the best ways. We needed an opportunity to get these people hands-on real experience with the software and have their skills validated, have certain real life use case scenarios presented to them that they could pass or, achieve success in without actually negatively affecting a customer's environment or a real production environment. And, they would have that freedom to even make a mistake in that environment and learn from that mistake and fix it. And then they have another tool in the belt that the next person may not have because they know how to resolve that situation preemptively if it does arise in production. So we had a lot of our channel teams and partners, sales, everybody was involved and in our thought process when we were trying to plan this out. It wasn't just partners either. Some internal employees also needed this upskilling too, and they are really essential to our entire process. Some of our most brilliant tech support teams and professional services folks also needed to get hands-on experience with this new software because while the principles were the same, they operated similarly and accomplished the same goals as our previous offering that we were competing with with binary tree in. They both did things really well, and the way they worked under the hood and the user interfaces were a little bit different. And if you throw somebody in the thick of things and just say, hey, just figure this out, you're good with computers, it's not exactly going to work out too well sometimes, right? And especially when dealing with, as I said, software that's really powerful in the enterprise landscape. And and I'll let Andrew talk about some of our success metrics and some of the things that we wanted to see.
Right. One of the other things that, as far as goals was concerned, I know as far as the access, right? We have partners, we have employees all around the world, all different time zones, right? So, one of the, again, challenges of instructor-led is do you have somebody in that time zone that can be a resource, and that's just not something that's always easy to do. So one of the goals was to have a system that could very easily be accessed from around the world, at the partner or employees time that they had available, right? And as Luke says, the success, our metrics for success, honestly, was to make sure that we had those partners certified, right, in a manner that we felt comfortable allowing them to then go deliver the services. But we also wanted to see the consumption, right? We wanted to see more partners being able to utilize this, right? So while the original project was really kind of targeted at a certain group of partners who we needed to upskill on the acquired software, right? It now became an idea of, well, what if everyone started taking advantage of this? All of our partners started taking advantage of this. So that was part of our success metrics.
And one of the reasons why that one bullet about the increased number of certified partners is in purple for our audience is to be able to sell Quest solutions, you have to be certified. So they had this bottleneck of being able to get partners certified. So, but by being able to get more partners certified, that increased their opportunities to increase their sales numbers and have more people selling, supporting, implementing their products. So that was also an important thing that they had to figure out a solution for, and they did, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Guys, did you have any internally, any, I don't want to say naysayers, but any people that were like, no, like I don't think you guys should be doing this, or that you had to try to win over or just get them on your side when you were saying, hey, we got to go more of this hands-on route?
Yeah, I honestly, there were folks utilizing the Skillable platform before we had even encountered this situation, but they were using it mainly just as the lab provider, not using it in the same use case that we were eventually going to consider, right? And in this case, we just had to show our leadership that skills could be validated. That was the main thing, showing them that skills could be validated. And when you think about, and I believe Andrew and I have both proctored practical exams in the past, even hands-on practical exams, with all the benefits that come with that, the proctor in the end checks over their lab to make sure they did everything correctly. And there's often a checklist of things that the student had to configure correctly. And you weight those scores based on how important that particular thing is, right? And in the end, we found out we could do that with Skillable. As long as we could show our leadership that we could validate their skills, show them that they did the lesson correctly, not only in a course, but in a practical exam. And in a course, when a student can go through a lesson and receive feedback from an instructor that says, yeah, you did it. Good job, buddy. Right? Or something like that. And it feels good. It gives them that, okay, I'm on the right track. I'm caught up with the class. I'm ready to go on to the next lesson, right? We needed something that had that kind of, step-by-step verification as they go through the instructions, just so they know they're doing it right. Because if you do something incorrectly at the start, especially with enterprise IT software, you misconfigure something, that could snowball later on. And then things start breaking and you're wondering what's going on, right? So, that's pretty much it, right? Showing them that you can validate skills and make people prove it.
Great. Awesome. And we'll get more into the skill validation in a little bit. So moving on to then like the vision of your program and your overarching training ecosystem, you had those immediate needs because of the acquisition, and then you had your long-term plan. Just talk to us about how you prioritized your needs, and then like what did you want this program actually to look like as you learn more about what was possible and based on your experience as well.
Do you want to talk about it, Andrew?
Sure. So yeah, there was basically a two-prong attack here, right? Where the immediate needs were to get these this course up and running by any means necessary. And right, we're a company that offers services to our customers. Well, so is Skillable, right? So we knew we were going to have to rely on whatever vendor we went with. Rely on their services, their expertise in order to help us get this going, help building out the skill validation portion, helping us with some of the learning design, and helping with the lab scoring pieces, right? And then the second part was, okay, well, we also need to make sure that whatever platform and vendor we go with, right, we can maintain this ourselves long term. And that's actually where I was part of the long-term plan when I came to the team, right? How do we manage this program long-term? Can we build it ourselves? Can we automate the checks ourselves? Can we script it ourselves? How much hands-on can we get without the vendor kind of, down the line, right? So we don't have to constantly rely on their services as well. So that was basically our two-piece thought process. It's two parts of our plan. Get this going.
Awesome. And of course, when you have the vision, you also then have to tie that down into the solution requirements and the decision criteria. And one of the great things about, again, what this Quest team did was that they were focused on the business drivers as well as the experience and the platform that they're going to be building this on. So guys, just there's a lot on the slides, so we don't need to go through everything here. But what were some of the things that you just want to like cherry pick out of here and talk about?
Sure. We were able to minimize our use of billable hours from our instructors. These brilliant people could deliver services or help our customers or partners directly in a more effective format. And we could leverage their knowledge if we needed a product expert. to help create content for these things. And, the partner reception was overall, pretty good. So we needed partners to just get on board. Don't be shy, sign up, take it. Don't be afraid. There's no judgment. It's self-paced. It kind of creates that custom, almost comfortable feeling that, hey, I can just log in and chip away at this whenever I'm ready. So I think that and the skill validation, having the ability for Andrew and I to eventually be able to write automation checks and actually check the students' work that actually, verify things were done correctly in a lab, to actually provide that feedback to the student and to the partners, whether they got it correct or incorrect. Like there's still constructive and valuable feedback that you can receive in either direction. So, and on top of that, like we need it to be accessible and for people to, just be able to click a link, log in, and start a lab, and their instructions are easily accessible with multiple forms of content following the universal design for learning, so that auditory learners can listen, visual learners can watch, and kinetic learners can do, right? And this kind of combined all of that. And if there was a solution out there that could provide that, that's what we were probably going to go towards.
And one of the metrics that will show the the outcomes of in a little bit was really the revenue impact, right? And that one of the things that we track behind the scenes is which partners did and completed the sales, which ones received the training, which ones completed and did the training, which ones sold the training, right? We can track all of that behind the scenes, and part of the ability for us to see all of that was part of our decision process, right? We needed to know individuals who did it. A lot of times, a product might just give you some keys, right? You don't necessarily know who is logging in and doing the training, right? With the way that we have everything set up, we know exactly who's going to be doing the training, right? So being able to see, well, is this going to lead to increased sales for that partner, and not necessarily for the individual, but for the partner company itself, right? So those are all metrics that we needed to make sure that we could actually track throughout this system.
Excellent, great guys. So we have we've built the business case, but then it comes down to actually building the solution. Everything looks good on paper, but how do you bring that to reality? So I know you guys were assessing a couple different solutions, and we had the existing that was the instructor led with some video and audio training. I know you guys were looking at simulations, sandboxes, and virtual labs, and then external training delivery partners as well. Like, how did you start to really just zero in on what you wanted to do? And then we'll talk about the types of learning environments that you were assessing from there. Sure.
The ability to deliver at scale was really one of the big drivers in our decision-making process. Instructor-led and video and audio-led training always has its place. It's so valuable still, right? And I wouldn't never knock it in any way, but for our particular use case and our need, it was evident that we needed something that scaled out quite a bit, and something that could be customized and had integration properties as well. And, something that we could really create engaging and almost gamified content to keep people, engaged and go on to the next lesson and be like, okay, what's the next challenge, or what's the next lesson objective that I need to complete, and have multiple forms of that. Simulations, I had worked with some great simulation products in the past, and they have their use case, but they can be sometimes a little bit linear, right? And predictable. Andrew had said that in a conversation earlier, that they are a little predictable. And just generic sandboxes don't always fully encapsulate a real use case scenario. So, Andrew, if you want to add some.
Yeah, I mean, part of we've done all of these, and in some cases done them all together, right? But like Luke said, we needed a solution that scaled out, and the software that we're talking about, um, is it's SaaS software, right? It changes basically almost every day, right? From my perspective, right? So when we're trying to use simulations, tomorrow my simulation is out of date, right? So we needed a platform that we could make the changes live, right? If a new feature comes out, or they just change where something is, right? We need to be able to reflect that really quickly in the training, right? And then having that ability to scale, right? Where some other like virtual lab providers, right? It doesn't scale as easily, right? It's not as easy to use from an interface perspective, right? So that was something that we had considered as well. And then we also looked at having an external provider do it all for us. But again, part of our long-term plan was to maintain all of this in-house, not constantly have to rely on a third-party vendor. So that's what led us really towards the scalable solution. As Luke said, we had other teams that were using it in a very limited fashion, almost like a traditional sandbox, as it were. But when we saw what other capabilities came on top of that, that's what really pushed us that way. With the feedback, the immediate feedback is the best part. Being able to check their work along the way. There's nobody. How many times you get to the end of a training day when I used to do these, in person, at the end of the day they're like, I don't see that, and you're like, you have to backtrack, right? I got to spend an hour backtracking. Where did they go wrong, right? And basically gating them along the way now, and letting them know, yeah, you did something wrong, right? It allows us to make sure they're on the right track, that they're not moving forward unless they actually understand the concepts, or from our perspective, right? Is there something that we're not teaching well in that particular lesson, right? That people keep getting it wrong, right? So the feedback goes both ways for me. But yeah, that scaling was really the huge factor for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love it. And what's really important, especially for our attendees here, so the types of hands-on learning environments, and Luke said it earlier about like the right environment for your need. The red, yellow, and green arrows here are based on what their needs are. This isn't saying that simulations are bad or traditional sandboxes aren't good. No. It's what they needed with their use case. There are times when simulations are the best solution. There are times when sandboxes are great. But then there's also times when you need those scored virtual labs as well. So it just depends on your use case. And as labs become more mainstream and more people are discovering the term lab, we're all like, people are seeing that it's actually a loaded term and it can mean different things to different people. So that's why it's really important to start to understand what's associated with the term lab, and that can mean a lot of different things. So great, guys. And then of course, I mean, you guys figured out what your desired solution was, and you partnered. Thankfully, thank you for partnering with Skillable. Talk to us about why you selected Skillable as your choice of for hands-on lab environments. And the platform as well.
Yeah, Skillable provided pretty much all of the above, as we were kind of hinting on earlier. We were able to follow different learning styles, have embedded guided content to truly get these people through the training in whatever fashion they saw fit. No matter what type of learner they were, there preferably was something for them there to guide them along. You could even have a video of one of us guiding them through the lesson, like here's how you come out on the other side, right? And here's why we're doing it this way, etc. Right? And it was an interactive, and at the time, and even today, it's a pretty innovative experience, right? We hadn't really seen many implementations of this on a wide scale, right? And we just kind of hoped it was possible, and it was. And we had a lot of support. A great team on your end came to kind of meet us and be like, okay, what do you want to know? What can we show you? And what can we help you show other people? And we kind of went from there. And it had, a large support cast, a great professional services team, and a lot of knowledge sharing workshops that kind of helped us get familiar with the platform, but also start writing some of the automations and scripts in-house, because Andrew and I needed to kind of hit the ground running once we started releasing courses and certification programs on this platform. We needed to be able to keep scaling it, but also make it maintainable in a way that we were familiar with the technologies involved and able to fix something if it needed updating and do it fast.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the professional services team, Luke. Can you expand on that about what they enabled you to do in terms of hitting your deadlines and getting you up to speed faster? Because from what I understood, you guys, didn't really have lab development skills at first. That was going to be a new core competency for you all going forward, right?
Yeah, it was a new kind of skill to learn while I was familiar with administering learning labs, and Andrew as well. There was this aspect of writing automated activity checks for the labs themselves, actually checking content within the lessons and writing your PowerShell or your script in a certain way so that it interacts with the lab correctly, and familiarizing yourself with all the intricate lab shortcuts and lab variables that you can leverage within there. And in the end, it creates a really seamless and interactive user experience. And when you see the benefits on the other side of it, when you actually test run your own training, it's pretty effective. So the professional services team at Skillable kind of took us under their wing a little bit. They helped us get the first couple of offerings out the door, wrote some automated activities for us, and we were able to kind of build on their lead there and hit the ground running after that. And they were able to show us how, the scripts interacted with the environment. And, luckily we were both technical people and interested and had a little bit of familiarity with some of these technologies. But the professional services team got us off the ground, and we were able to scale it and go to the moon afterwards, as they say.
Awesome. Great. And I guess one of the great things that again, when we were working on the original case study, was that both teams knew what the big vision was initially help get you all up off the ground and running, meet your goals. And as you guys became better developers and built up your program, the professional services team would then start to dial back their involvement so you could just take more control. And that's just great when teams are working together like that. So awesome. Thank you. All right. The results. And how do you start to know all this work was actually working? So talk to us about, you've put this program in market. What were the early indicators that you're on the right track?
Yeah. So basically we got too much volume. So that was oh, this is almost working too well, right? The channel managers and the account reps that basically give or sell our training out to our partners, they loved it, right? They loved how easy it was to say, hey, let's get this to our partners, and they all jumped on board. And that was almost immediately noticeable from us, right? Because whereas before with an ILT, there's a little bit more of a hefty cost involved, right? So that would come in dribs and drabs. This came in like an avalanche, right? So that was okay, something must have gone right. But with that, we saw an increase in the people actually taking advantage of the training itself, right? So not only did the volume of registration go up, but the people actually using the training went up as well. And then, I think we have a slide later on, we'll show that actually led to an increase in partner sales, right? So we were able to see that almost immediately. The numbers for the partner sales didn't come in right away, but that was something we gained over time. But we could see this was going to work. almost immediately.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's why then this slide is just fantastic. It's the results of the hard work and showing how it all has to come together and be in lockstep. Because like Andrew just said, they had this explosion in consumption, but that consumption would have been bottlenecked by their SMEs having to manually check all of the labs for certifications. The time it required for updating their courses, and then also how their certification process worked. So just talk to us about how what that time saved, what that led to, how you're able to reduce costs. I know we'll talk about how you did some of that with the automations on a couple slides from now, but just like talk to us about these results and what it meant for your team and your organization as a whole.
Sure. It obviously benefited our partners right away, and that was our primary concern. But the resource, and that resource often being time, cost reduction, was paramount, because we were able to focus on creating really good courses, really good content. So we were able to do what we love and learn new things in the process with a lot of the integration capabilities and the lab scripts and automated activities that we could develop within these labs and these courses. We were able to really embrace it, and luckily it led to an overall increase in training consumption. We were able to really track folks in terms of what sort of lessons they were having trouble with. We could go into their lab instance and actually see if they had trouble on lesson 6, or if there were certain activities that they maybe didn't get 100% on, but were good enough to go through, and maybe that's a point of analysis there. Maybe we need to just do a deep dive into that section and provide some more content on it, or elaborate the instructions. We're able to really look at where folks were getting hung up and the parts that they really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. I'll just say one last thing, that we'll address in a few moments, is that one of the things that growth does illuminate is issues with your business processes, right? And that was one of the things that what happened here is where our existing business processes did not support the massive growth that we saw, right? And that's where the next couple slides will go over. So, but something awesome to be aware of.
Yeah. So perfect segue into that. You guys have been doing this for more than you have 2+ years of lessons learned. So let's talk about what your lessons are learned and some of the things that you all have done. And let's start with the integrations and automations. What have you been able to do to make your all lives and your business more efficient and effective?
So many processes, and I'm sure for the other people there or in their own businesses, unfortunately, we all do things very manually sometimes. And that was what illuminated, right? When you're doing a manual process and you only have a few of them to do every week, it's not such a big deal. You don't even think about it. But when now you have 100 of them to do every week, now something's got to give, right? And you can't just keep moving forward like that. So one of the charges that I was basically given was solve the problem. We can't keep doing this the same way. So we were able to take just the registration process, right, and automate that, so we get the orders out of our CRM and basically send out the registrations and course assignments directly to each of the users. It gets emailed directly to them, hands off, right? Happens every morning, right? The ability for our partners to sign up for the courses, right? So they say, hey, I want to take that, right? The process is a little bit more streamlined for them to get in touch with our channel managers in order to get that training approved and assigned to them. And then even just from a support perspective, right? We're no longer just sitting around looking at an email inbox, right, trying to help people out, right? We now have our own service desk that we utilize. one of our own, thankfully one of our own products, right? So we have a service desk, and Skillable actually updated the little, help me link inside the lab itself to actually go to our service desk, right? So that we can support our partners in a much faster way.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Luke, anything from you?
Yeah, the ability to troubleshoot any issues is a little more streamlined, and like I was stating earlier, the ability to still monitor somebody over the shoulder, but also look at exact areas that they may be getting hung up on if they're experiencing an oddity. And anomalies do occasionally happen, but they were able to actually see that and actually log into their lab instance and see what might be going on. Maybe they have just some rare occurrence that we didn't write into our conditionals of a script or something like that. And we've actually found that working with SaaS software, we encounter that a fair amount once in a while, right? Like we have to update and add more conditionals to our automations so that we can adapt to further scenarios, new modules that are released, etc. Right? So it allows us to make these changes really quickly and deploy them to production safely.
And
Great.
one
Awesome.
last thing I want to just add, for anyone who is scared of APIs, as I was originally many years ago, Skillable actually makes it so much easier. And I know I'm doing the plug here. I'm not being paid for this promotion. So the Skillable documentation for their API is beyond any other documentation I've ever seen for APIs. It actually helps you learn how it works, right? So it definitely was, that documentation alone helped us get to this point where we have things fully automated now.
Awesome. Thanks for that shout out, Andrew.
Yep. So
our API team would be very happy with you.
Yeah, they are awesome.
So from I guess we'll kind of show kind of the evolution of Quest Labs. And if you're not familiar with the lab environment, I guess here's a quick little snapshot here. You have the virtual, like the lab environment on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, you have the integrated instructions pane that has, the tips, the guides, the instructions on what to do. So just some baseline for our attendees. And then up here, Andrew, just at a high level, because I know we're starting to run out of time here. Like, talk to us what we saw here, and then what we'll see on the next slide about what your labs look like today.
Right. So obviously, one of our we had to get these out the door, right, as fast as we could. So one of the things that we never really spent a lot of time on was standardization across the board of how do we use the buttons, how do we make sure people see the buttons, what they're used for, the flow of the learning pane itself. There's nothing wrong with it; it works, but it doesn't have the same type of flow that it could have. It's not as immediately illuminating for certain topics, or if I want them to do a certain activity, right? Does color matter in this scenario, right? And that's one of the things that we've been spending the last 2 years on, is working on. All right, well, now that we've been living with these labs for so long, how do we update them to be more standardized across the board, lab to lab, and then also how to draw the eye to certain areas to make sure that certain content is being delivered properly. So that's when we lead into the new one, the new views here, right? So and one of the things that I decided to do was, let's standardize. If you see a certain color, or right, the icon, right, if you see a certain icon or color, right, that means something very specific. So lab to lab, right, if you see red, if you don't do this thing, the lab itself will malfunction, right? It just will not work. Not just a product specific thing, but the lab itself will not actually function, right? Whereas a blue, anytime we have a button, right, or a skill check, right, you're going to see that in the blue with the question mark, right? Yellow is always some sort of with the little light bulb there, right, is always some sort of knowledge, right? Here's some content, here's some context about what you're doing, why you're doing it, right? So I'm not going to go over every single one. And then I also came up with a here's how you use the Skillable interface. One of the little things that we found along the way was people asking a lot of questions. Well, how do I save a lab? How do I, change from light mode to dark mode, right? Little things like that. So now we have at the beginning of all of our labs, we have a interactive way for people to find out how to use the lab itself. And I feel like tickets have gone down for some of those things, right? So that's really what we've been mostly focused on is learning design principles and standardization across the board, and
Awesome.
helping our partners to achieve the goal of getting through the lab.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things here, especially with the color-coded knowledge and alert blocks, et cetera, is relaying that what we call tribal knowledge to folks in the field, because Andrew and I are kind of product experts on a couple products, but we also leverage the knowledge of folks who have been working in the field with these products for a long time, highly valued and experienced individuals that can provide little tidbits of information that are really helpful to folks who may be getting ready for their first booking, right? And trying to get certified so they can go out there and deliver services on our behalf. Those provide really valuable nuggets of knowledge that may not necessarily be covered in the elaborate instructions, but it's there for them to consume if they need it.
Awesome. Love it. So let's help our attendees get started. So like, what do you wish you all knew before you started, down this path of bringing and becoming more of a hands-on, outcome-based training program in your enablement?
Yeah, the scripting familiarity. Like I had a bit of familiarity with PowerShell, but Andrew was more familiar, and just really glad to have him join the team. But he's been with us for a couple of years, and we've been able to really create a really custom experience, nice, seamless, integrated experience with both of our knowledge combined. We had the benefit of having technical content creators who were familiar with the product and also creating the training on Skillable. I was one of those folks, and I was very fortunate to be in that position. So if you have technical folks who can create the content on Skillable with you or for you, then that's only going to benefit you. And I'll have Andrew talk about some scaling business processes. If he wants.
As I alluded to earlier, right? And this is not something that you may be able to glean, right? The explosive success of our program is what basically crushed our internal processes along the way. And I am not one to sit around and manually issue things. So it just so happened that my colleague decided to go on vacation, and I was in charge of doing all the manual processes, and I said, this is not happening, right? So spend the time. If it takes you a couple weeks, to automate a process, but it saves you a year's worth of work, right? It's going to be worth it, right? So you need to know, and you may not know right away, but the business processes, are they going to scale, right? Are the things that you're doing now going to actually be a hindrance in the future? And don't take it as a problem when that happens, right? It's just a speed bump, right? You'll eventually get over it, right? So, but looking back, I wish we were able to predict some of those issues with the business processes.
Awesome. And everybody, I know we're at the bottom or the top of the next hour. If you can stay on for just a couple more minutes, that'd be great. Otherwise, you will get the recording. We're almost done. Just have a few more things to cover. So from a must-have perspective, I mean, what else would you say you guys wish or would say to our attendees that you've got to have to set yourself up for the most success here?
Yeah, just have a team that's interested in this overall platform and the technology behind it. And it's not something that if you don't know, for example, scripting or PowerShell right off the bat, or only know a little bit, you can learn it. The documentation is there to support you. The integration and API documentation is there to support you. And it's really consumable. Both Andrew and I have created automations based on it, and that have really developed and benefited our platforms. We have, LMSs that interact between each other. We have various integrations that we utilize, but we have noticed that, expanding our knowledge based on how this platform works and what it leverages has been a huge boon to us as professionals. So not only are you kind of enabling your partners in one corner, but you're also expanding the skills of your instructional design team and content creators as well that are involved with the platform. And that's really valuable.
And one thing I'll always point out is that a lot of businesses build their processes around the capabilities of whatever software they might be using, right, behind the scenes. Don't be beholden to that, right? You're changing how you're doing things. Don't try to shoehorn, the old process into the new products, right, into the new way of doing things. And that's part of the reason why our business processes didn't scale, right? Because them by themselves were not flexible enough to actually accommodate what we needed them to do. So we have the and another thing that there's no bullet point for, right, is manager support, right? So our leaders support what we do. If we need to make a decision and say, hey, we've got an internal process, it just does not work, it's going to be a problem for this process to succeed, we are pretty much, given the ability to go ahead and make that change as necessary, right? So, and that's what's allowed us to be successful. So having that ability to adapt is paramount to making this work, right? Don't be beholden to your old business processes just because, right? Change can be good sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
so true.
Yeah.
So true. Awesome. Luke and Andrew, thank you so much for your time. I'll bring us home for this. So everybody, if you've been like, hey, this has been fantastic. What Quest and Luke and Andrew and others at Quest have done is fantastic. Like, where can I get started? Like, what are like some of the use cases that could apply to our organization? And that's where we call them hands-on use cases. And you can learn more about these if you go to skillable.com/modernize for a free guide. But the highest level, they talk about, or the use cases, are around customer and partner enablement, employee enablement, technical training and certification, and events and conferences. And you can see down below some of the organizations that are taking advantage of these different types of use cases. Quest, for example, is doing a couple of these use cases, and it spans. So I highly recommend that you go check out, again, skillable.com/modernize to learn more about those. And then in terms of next steps, like if you're interested now or in 2025 or beyond, like scan the QR code here and just take a 20 to 30 minute informational call with our account team. Or you can go to skillable.com/demo. You have nothing to lose. Just learn, come with a question, come with a challenge, and let's see how we can help you solve that. And if you are already considering us or already a customer, follow up with your account executive and keep making awesome decisions like attending webinars like these. And then finally, if you're not ready, but you want to learn more, scan the bottom QR code. And again, download that free guide or go to skillable.com/modernize to just continue to educate yourself about what's possible. And then, as we wrap it up, Skillable's expertise is your head start. I mean, we talk about helping our customers and prospects stand on the shoulders of giants. I mean, we work with organizations like Microsoft, like IBM, like Quest. We have this experience, both lessons learned, the hard way and the good way, that you can use to your benefit. So with that said, I know we thank you for 5 extra minutes. Thank you so much for your time. And just know that when you are hands-on and you're doing something, that doing is different, and that different isn't just something that's abstract. It's putting you on the path to being outcome-oriented and performance-based. So again, Luke and Andrew from Quest, thank you so much. To our attendees, thank you so much as well. We hope you have a great day, and we will send you the recording as soon as we get it to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.